Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks, and we begin this news bulletin with the top global story, something that leaders all over the world have their eyes firmly fixed upon. The stage is set in Geneva for the crucial summit meeting between US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The 18th century Swiss Villa Lagrange will be hosting the two leaders. In a short within the last few minutes, US President Joe Biden has boarded Air Force One and he is now en route to Geneva. We'll get you more on our top story, but first, let's take a look at all the headlines. Joe Biden and European leaders attempt to end the Trump-era trade war. The two sides are likely to end a long-standing row over Airbus and Boeing and eliminate trade tariffs. America is back, says President Biden as he meets Charles Michel and Ursula von der Leyen. As the world's two most powerful leaders, Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin, are set to meet in Geneva, a Kremlin aide confirms the agenda will include contentious issues of cybersecurity and Alexei Navalny. Britain agrees to a multi-billion-pound free trade deal with Australia following Brexit. It scraps tariffs on goods ranging from wine, cars and farm products. Four polio workers are shot dead while three others were injured in the eastern Afghanistan city of Jalalabad. The vaccine drive had recently resumed after being stopped over the killing of three female workers back in March. The Swedish furniture giant IKEA gets a $1.2 million fine and its former chief a 2-year suspended prison term after a court in France found that the company was guilty of widespread spying on its employees. The tipping point for irreversible global warming may already have been triggered, warns the scientist who led the biggest expedition to the Arctic. So, in the next 24 hours, Geneva is set to host the world's most anticipated meeting, talks between US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin. And Joe Biden is now on board Air Force One, heading to Geneva. Ties between the two countries are at their lowest ebb since the Cold War era. Both leaders are looking to project strength. In his latest statement, President Biden signaled his determination to take a firm stance and vowed to lay down red lines.
There need not be. We should decide where it's in our mutual interest, in the interest of the world, to cooperate and see if we can do that. And the areas where we don't agree, make it clear what the red lines are. I have met with him. He's bright. He's tough. And I have found that he is as they say, when he used to play ball, a worthy adversary.
The two leaders are unlikely to produce a thaw in their relationship. President Biden warned that the United States would respond if Russia continues its violent activities.
I shared with our allies that I'll convey to President Putin, that I'm not looking for conflict with Russia, but that we will respond if Russia continues its harmful activities. And we will not fail to defend the transatlantic alliance or stand up for democratic values.
He even called Vladimir Putin a worthy adversary. This is what President Biden said when the press asked him about his approach ahead of the summit.
The last thing anyone would do is negotiate in front of the world press as to how he's going to approach a critical meeting with another adversary and or someone who could be an adversary. It's the last thing I'm going to do.
Biden made his approach to Putin clear in March 2021. Biden pulled no punches as he called the Russian president a killer during a TV interview.
You know Vladimir Putin, you think he's a killer?
Mm-hmm. I do.
You know Vladimir Putin, you think he's a killer?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And yet now he calls him a worthy adversary. Speaking on Putin's strongest opponent, Alexei Navalny, Biden said that Navalny's potential death would hurt Russia's ties with the rest of the world. In an interview with an American news channel, President Putin refused to guarantee Alexei Navalny's release.
Navalny's death would be another indication that Russia has little or no intention of abiding by basic, fundamental human rights. It would be a tragedy. It would do nothing but hurt his relationships with the rest of the world, in my view, and with me.
The person that you have mentioned, the same kind of measures will apply, not in any way worse than to anybody else who happens to be in prison.
Countering allegations by the United States, Putin refused even to concede that Russia was behind the cyber attacks on the US. He called the accusations baseless and farcical.
Mr. President, are you waging a cyber war against America?
Where is the evidence? Where is proof? It's becoming farcical. We know it well. We have been accused of all kinds of things, election interference, cyber attacks, and so on and so forth. And not one time did they bother to produce any kind of evidence or proof, just unfounded accusations.
In a statement ahead of tomorrow's meeting, the Kremlin said that it was less likely that a wide range of long-standing issues between the two countries would get resolved. The stage is set for the biggest meeting of 2021. The agenda has been laid down, one that all the world's leaders will be sure to watch. Biden and Putin will meet in that 18th century villa in Geneva on Wednesday. Let's go live to our correspondent in Moscow, Daria Bondarchuk, who joins us now. And Dasha, the Americans say that President Biden has been preparing for this meeting with Vladimir Putin for 50 years. They say that he wants a stable and predictable relationship with the Russians. But do the Russians want a stable and predictable relationship with President Biden?
Well, the Kremlin has previously expressed sort of expectation that it has been always advocating a sort of business-like, very practical dialogue that it hopes to build with Washington. Just on the eve of this meeting, Russia's President Vladimir Putin, in one of his recent interviews, said that he hopes that under Biden there will be less impulse-based movements, and also acknowledging that Biden is a seasoned politician and a career man, radically different from Trump. Obviously here there is an understanding as well that relations between the countries are at the lowest in many years, and that this does not play well for either of the sides. What we've seen in recent years with diplomatic tit-for-tat expulsions, with sanctions and counter-sanctions, and all sorts of allegations, and Russia denying any involvement in hacking or meddling in US or European elections, etc. We've seen all that and sanctions in particular that have harmed Russian economy, and they have created many inconveniences for individuals and government officials and some key Russian government-run industries like defense and space and aviation. So Russia indeed would like to see more stability and more understanding and sort of where the relations are going and how they're going to develop, because all these unexpected sanctions and the uncertainty around them, which sanctions will be hit, what people will go on the blacklist have created a lot of inconvenience. And we've also seen that some preemptive de-escalation, if I can say so, has been undertaken on both sides. And with the US waiving sanctions on companies involved in the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline project, very sensitive and important to the Kremlin, that have sort of sent a message that the two sides could step back, and there is hope for de-escalation, and that things will not get back to normal, but at least will go to some level of a practical and working communication, if not a full comprehensive dialogue.
And Dasha, everywhere that Joe Biden goes, and he said it today during his meetings with EU leaders, he claims America is back. Do the Russians believe him, or do they suspect that there could be further political churn in the US in the years ahead?
Well, some political observers here have said that Vladimir Putin is yet to evaluate Joe Biden's sort of weight and whether he is indeed the leader that could unite various political forces in America and help them forget their differences and will be indeed able to deliver on the agreements and promises. And Russia has indicated previously that the two countries could cooperate on some areas of mutual interest, such as climate change, such as cybersecurity, such as conflict resolution from Syria and Iran to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Many aspects there to work on that Moscow had previously indicated that could be the base for practical interaction and communication between Moscow and Washington. Moscow has been for years advocating sort of a concept of a multipolar world where there's not just one power but many voices are heard, and the interests of many countries, key players, regional players, are taken into account. So in that sense, that would sort of challenge U.S. ambitions to dominate as it used to in the world in many areas. And Russia is hoping in that way to build up its influence in some regions that are resistant to the idea of a strong American presence or democratic values, or whatever you call it, and hopefully advance its own interests and its own agenda on the international arena.
We're in for an interesting 24 hours. Daria Bondarchuk, our correspondent live in Moscow. Thanks very much indeed for that. And I'm sure that Dasha will be watching this summit with as much interest as all the rest of us. The US President Joe Biden seems to be very well prepared for the Geneva summit with Vladimir Putin. Indeed, as I was saying, the White House has been telling reporters he's been preparing for this meeting for the past half a century. According to a scoop by the US political website Axios, the president has a team of Russia experts advising him on his every move. That team includes Fiona Hill, a former member of the US National Security Council during Donald Trump's administration. Former ambassadors to Russia under the Obama administration, Mike McFaul and John Teft. Rose Gottemuller, who was NATO's deputy general in the Obama era. And Eric Green, a senior director for Russia at the National Security Council. As per Axios's reporting, that expert team agreed on the approach that Biden should adopt, which is, quote, blunt talk, leaving no doubt for Putin on where Biden stands, from hacking to human rights, unquote. President Biden's meeting with US allies in the G7 and NATO also helped build momentum for his bilateral with the Russian leader. The summit's also put America back in the center of the global power equation.
Representing almost 1 billion people, half.
After the NATO allies met in Brussels and discussed China and its policies, Beijing has now hit back. As you'll hear in this report, they've accused the alliance of exaggerating the threat from China and creating confrontation.
U.S. President Joe Biden offered an unequivocal commitment to defend fellow NATO countries on Monday.
Article 5 we take as a sacred obligation.
Article 5 is the mutual defense clause of the military alliance.
I just want all of Europe to know that the United States is there.
The members are in Brussels for an annual summit. Biden sought to rally Western allies to support a U.S. strategy to contain China's military rise and present a united front in the face of Russian aggression. Allied leaders are concerned about Russia's recent military buildup near Ukraine, as well as its covert and cyber attacks to undermine Western states. Moscow denies any wrongdoing. Beijing, while not seen as an outright adversary, is no longer seen as a benign trading partner. Here's how NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg put it.
China does not share our values. We see how they crack down on democratic protests in Hong Kong. All of this matters for our security.
Another topic at the NATO summit is the handover of power in Washington. Biden's predecessor disparaged the alliance as obsolete, harangued members to pay more for mutual defense, and sometimes appeared to cozy up to their number one adversary, Moscow. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte seemed relieved to see the U.S. administration once again committed to the principles of the Defense Pact.
I also was able to work with Trump. Of course, it was a bit more awkward sometimes, but I think with Joe Biden, it's more natural again.
Biden will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva on Wednesday.
Over 35,000 Holocaust survivors are estimated to be living in the New York metropolitan area. Most of those survivors are now in their 80s and 90s, falling in the high-risk category with regard to COVID-19. After a year of living in isolation, some of them were finally able to reunite at a concert organised in their honour. Here's the story of their joyous reunion.
Look at these happy faces, clapping, dancing and singing along. These are the New York area Holocaust survivors at a concert held especially in their honor. After a year of being forced to live in isolation, they were finally all able to reunite.
I've been doing the corona, mostly at home. Didn't get out. Myself a Passover, which was very bad, and Shavuot, very bad. And then when Easter, and I did get the corona, and I was very, very sick. I wound up in the hospital, and I thank God that I'm alive.
The pandemic enforced isolation haven't been easy for them. Most of the survivors are now in their 80s and 90s, meaning they're at a high risk of contagion. And so, all this while, they were cooped up in their homes. Until health and family network groups that help the New York area Holocaust survivors came together to organize a special luncheon and a concert by an Orthodox Jewish singer, Yaakov Shuki.
And it meant a lot to me to see the people that survived the corona, and some that are gone, which is so sad. People that I know that are gone. And just to be together with the people and see that we can smile again after everything we went through the past year and a half meant everything to me. It just lifted my spirits.
For many of them, this was the first time they were able to hug and talk to one another in almost a year. Tears streamed down their face as they rejoiced at this reunion.
You see that the people care, and everybody it was just amazing, very touchy. I didn't stop crying. It's all right.
Such events were frequently held before the pandemic. The survivors have suffered unspeakable horrors in concentration camps, and these gatherings give them an outlet to share their stories and help teach the younger generations, and of course socialize. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, a diamond rush has gripped a village in South Africa. Thousands of fortune seekers have rushed to the Kwalati village in search of gemstones after unidentified stones were discovered in the region. Here's a report.
I hadn't seen or touched a diamond in my life. It's my first time touching it here. I hope this will make a difference at home because we are really struggling, so I hope things will be better.
This is Kambuzo Mbili. He stays in the village of Kwalati in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. He's never seen a diamond in his life and is overjoyed to hold one in his hand. Villagers in Kwalati have been digging an open field since 12th of June in search of what they believe to be diamonds. This after unidentified stones were discovered in the area. People travelled from across South Africa to join the villagers. Holding a handful of the tiny stones, 27-year-old Mendoza Bello calls the discovery life-changing.
This means our lives will change because no one had a proper job. I do odd jobs. When I returned home with them, the family was really overjoyed.
The mines department sent a team comprising of experts to the site to collect samples, conduct an analysis and form a technical report. There has been no analysis as of now, but this could not stop thousands of fortune seekers. Long lines of cars were parked on both sides of the gravel road. Some of them have already started selling these stones with the starting price ranging from $7 to $22. The provincial government has requested people to leave the site for the authorities to conduct a proper inspection. For over 3 decades, South Africa's economy has been suffering high levels of unemployment and its people have been living in poor conditions. The coronavirus pandemic has only made it worse. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
Almost half a century back, Beatlemania reached India. The band made their famous trip down to the city of Rishikesh for a meditation program. While in India, they met Ajit Singh, who owned a musical instrument shop. What followed was a story for the ages. He took the band members home for tea, even performed on George Harrison's birthday. For a trip that ended with controversies and allegations, this is a beautiful memory.
It's the late 1960s. Beatlemania has gripped the world. Everywhere you look, the band pops up, from bedroom posters to t-shirts and billboards. If you grew up in the 1960s, you know what we're talking about. But even the buzzing Beatles needed a break. Some time off to kick back and relax. In 1968, their chosen destination was India. More accurately, the languid town of Rishikesh. The Beatles and their entourage traveled in 2 groups. They stayed at this retreat where they signed up for a meditation course. At this point, our story takes a pivot. We join the fabulous 4 in Dehradun, wandering the streets away from crazed fans. They ended up here at a musical instrument shop. What followed was a story for the ages.
When they came here, visiting after arrival in Rishikesh, they came here. Actually, they came not to see me, but they came to see Dehradun. And while passing here, they noticed a music store and they came right in.
Ajit Singh hit it off with the band. He took them home for tea, even fixed John Lennon's guitar. The band struck him as a bunch of polite young guys, something he remembers distinctly from the meeting.
They were always addressing me as sir, 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 because of my age, you know, I was older than them anyway. So I don't know, I got good feeling. I was happy to see them. I never expected they'll be coming to the show, you know.
Almost half a century later, the story is still as magical as that meeting. But the storytellers have grown old and frail. Ajit Singh himself passed away recently. In the years after 1968, he would become the man who took the Beatles for tea. But Singh was a musical genius in his own right, a top-graded artist at the All India Radio. Singh's music shop in Dehradun and the Beatles ashram in Rishikesh. Old, run down, a shadow of its heydays in the 60s. Decades later, the trip to India still divides Beatles fans. The band would break up a few months later. But their time in India gave us 30 songs. The band even celebrated George Harrison's 25th birthday at the retreat, a grand event at which Ajit Singh performed. But did the man who took the Beatles for tea have a favorite? We're not sure, but he thought John Lennon was the most talented. South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
And that's all we have on this edition of WION Live broadcast from Washington. I'm going to leave you today with these visuals of Germany's oracle elephant, Yashoda, who has trumpeted the start of the Euros 2020 with some heartbreaking news for German fans. The elephant chose France's flag over Germany's as the two teams get ready to face against each other in the European Championships. Stay tuned for more news updates right here on WION. World is One.